Hello everyone, welcome to another Connect the Six Instagram Live. I am your host Rachel. Welcome one and all of our listeners and viewers as we come together to celebrate community members within our community. And this month we know is Black or is Women's Month, and we know March 1st was Black Mental Health Day, and we have a very special guest who's going to be speaking on mental health and wellness. So a very, very special show for today as we celebrate mental health, Black Mental Health Day, as well as Women's Month as well. So welcome all. I'm just going to wait for our guest, Simone. I believe I see her there. And Simone, it's just telling me that you need to upgrade your app in order to join. So maybe if you just want to quickly jump into your app store and upgrade the Instagram app, then we'll be able to connect with you, unless it allows you to send a request. But on my end, I'm not able to invite you. So while Simone is just doing that, just wanted to take some time to again thank everyone for joining us. We've posted a few new videos on our Instagram related to a few very interesting topics, so I would love to recommend everyone taking a look and logging in there. And while we're doing that, I'm just gonna pull up here my questions for tonight for Simone. Simone is a very well-known member of our community. She's a mental health advocate, she's a designer, and she's a business entrepreneur. There we go. So we'll have forward to, and let's see, send request. There we go. Hi Simone, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Not sure what happened there, but yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. We have you here now. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you. Very excited to have you on here. As I was mentioning before, Monday was Black Mental Health Day.
Yes.
This month is celebrating women in general. And it's a great way to kickstart the month by having a woman who speaks on mental health and mental wellness, and especially within the Black community as well. So thank you for being our guest for today.
Thank you for having me.
So without further ado, we'll get started with some of the questions that we have here. And guests and those that are joining, please feel free to ask questions at any point in time. But what I'll do first is I'll give you the floor just to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, just to sort of give everyone an idea of who you are.
Sure. In a nutshell, my name is Simone Walsh, and I am an advocate for mental health. I'm also the founder of the charity called Essence of Mind Outreach Program, which is a charity that supports families as well as individuals get the essential support that they need regarding a mental illness. And I'm also an author of my first book, Poetic Diary of a Bleeding Heart, which is my personal testimony on how I was able to overcome my own darkness and find my way into the light. So I'm basically an advocate. I go around schools, workplaces, just to share my story, to inspire others, to let them know that, hey, you are not alone. And so that's my primary right now, is the advocacy work, but I also do design, sewing clothes, making clothes, and trying to get into that market on a broader spectrum. So yeah, that's a little snippet of me.
And we're going to get much deeper throughout the conversation itself. But you're a Jill of all trades.
Yeah, that's what they say.
You keep busy, and busy
yes,
is good.
I do.
Good. it keeps to challenge yourself and continue to motivate you to do different things, to be innovative and to create, right?
Yes.
Um, so let's start. I guess we'll start with design to begin.
Mhm.
Um, so when did you first discover your passion for design?
For design, I would say at the age of 14, as a young teenager growing up, I always used to take apart my own clothes, get a scissors, cut them up, make my own things out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I started sketching at a young age. My aunt had a sewing machine, and I was just interested in making my own clothes. Um, I'm very tiny or slim built, as people would say, so it was hard for me to find clothes that really fit me and made me
Mm-hmm.
look good. So I started to make my own clothes. And I think from there it branched off into me wanted to create a line and to encourage other ladies to wear clothing that allowed them to have the power to attract. And so it started at a young age, and I went on to college to pursue the overall fundamentals of how to sew a garment, how to get it manufactured and production and so forth. So it went on from 14 through high school. Then I went to college for it. So it's been a passion of mine for a long time. And so I still have it in me, and I'm still trying to just get to that level where I really want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
What's
yeah,
the name of your
that's
line that you created?
the line that I created is called Monautic. I took
Okay.
my name and I added nautic to the end, which means having the power to attract, almost like magnetic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when you wear the pieces that I create and design, people look at you or they say, "Ooh, that looks nice. Where did you get that? What fabric is that?" That's the statement I wanted to give, and I got that
Yeah.
with the line. A lot of people like customize pieces, and so I branched off into making one-off pieces that you could never find in a store. So
Right.
it got a lot of reviews. I did fashion shows. I was featured in a few magazines with the line, and then it took a different turn after that, you know? Yeah.
So how have you sort of branched off or finding new ways within design itself currently?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I branched off into creating the line, but making it a little bit more current. It's been out of the eye for a while. 2006, 2007, I would say, was around my last big fashion show.
Okay.
And it went on hiatus around that time. So just bringing it back because I'm still sewing, I'm still making pieces, and people are like, "Hey, why don't you do your line?" You know, and so bringing it back, I've turned to Instagram by doing a few videos and showing people how I actually make the garments because Instagram wasn't around back then or
Yeah.
wasn't that big for me. And so I'm really using that advantage to show people that. So I've been doing more of a formal look, lots of evening wear, silhouettes, weddings, more of a softer look this time around. Yeah.
So we just know we've got to stay tuned to see how the
Yeah,
line comes out when you're ready
exactly.
to drop the whole line.
I'll be making a big announcement when it comes out. I'm working right now on a mini collection, so I hope to get that out by spring, summer to show people the pieces that I've been working on. So yeah, it's coming.
We're looking
Yeah.
forward to it. So,
Yeah.
what was some of the challenges that you had to overcome as an entrepreneur, especially, or what's some of the advice you would have for young Black females who might be open to starting their own businesses, delving into their creative side? What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome?
The challenges that I had to overcome was the consistency. Being an entrepreneur, you kind of depend on that income, and it's not always consistent. I had busy moments. I had days where it was dry, nothing was happening. And so it's hard to have that consistency. It's like your income is your passion and your work. You're out there just trying to do what you love, and it was hard to get that consistent income. And so I think that's what stirred me into a different direction, because I wasn't seeing that consistency. I wasn't able to provide and support myself with the
Mm-hmm.
income that was coming in. Work didn't get as busy, jobs weren't as busy, people weren't ordering clothes as much. And so The biggest challenge is the consistency. It fluctuates. You can't tell when it's going to be good. You don't know when it's going to be bad. You kind of are just going with the stream, going with the motion of things. But you just have to plan strategically and stick with it. I picked up on what months were busy for me, what months worked, which clientele would need things. And so if you know how to navigate it, you can make it work. So
Right.
it's really hard, but you have to balance those two, the consistency and how to navigate that
It
system.
it sounds like there was a lot of planning and strategizing,
Yes, definitely.
and
Definitely.
patience as well,
Oh,
because it doesn't happen overnight. Like it takes time to really understand, like you said, what works at what seasons, what times.
mhm.
Um, Taking that time to analyze your market.
Exactly. You have to do that because mine just changed a lot, especially in the fashion industry. It constantly changed, and that was my all at that moment. And so I had to, research and see who are my competition, what were they doing, what wasn't I doing. So you always have to try and be ahead of the game at all times. Yeah.
Right, right. No, for sure. So, moving from design, I want to talk about you being an advocate for mental health.
Hmm.
Um, and you yourself have had firsthand experiences when it comes to mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Um, could you maybe take a bit of time just to share a little bit of your story?
Sure, definitely. I decided to become a mental health advocate when I personally went through it and felt the wrath of what a mental illness could do. So around 2009, I became the victim of workplace harassment and bullying. And that led me into a deep depression, anxiety, and basically I spiraled out of control. For those that don't know what workplace harassment and bullying is, it is basically an unwelcome words and remarks from maybe your supervisor, maybe a coworker, but it happens in the workplace. And people are surprised when I say workplace harassment and bullying. It happens. It's not like they think it just happens in the school grounds, kids are being bullied, but adults do experience it. And it's something very hard to prove because of the environment that it takes place in. And so I experienced that where a lot of negative verbal abuse happened over a period of 5 years. And it was a job that I enjoyed and I loved. And I said, I'm not quitting this job. I'm not going to leave this job. And I didn't listen to my body. Every day I went in, the supervisor would just hit at me with the negative words, the verbal abuse, coaching sessions turned into just a put down. I would come out of the room crying. And my last coaching session, I ended up leaving work early and just hearing the built up accusations playing over in my head. I said to myself, I'm such a failure. I'm such a loser. I'll never be nothing. They're right. They're right about me. And I remember just driving my vehicle right into the middle of the busy intersection. And that's when I just lost it. I just said, come what may, I don't care about myself. I don't care who I hurt. And that was my first experience of suicide. And that caused me to be on long term disability, be off work. And that's when I found out what I was going through was depression, anxiety, suicide, because I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't listen to my body. And although my doctor warned me because I was telling him what was going on at work, and he was like, yeah, this is what's happening. You're being bullied. You need to quit that job or switch departments or you're going to snap. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Sure. It's just a one-off day. He's like, no, I'm serious. You really need to take this seriously. And he was right. So you really should listen to your doctor for those of you who are in the similar situation. But that's where it started. And that led to a series of events with me being off work and being sunk deeper into depression, deeper into anxiety, and my family not wanting to talk about it, not willing to accept what I was going through, and just being caught up in the system of being on waiting lists to see a psychologist or, the medication. And it was like a whole different world for me. I was like, whoa, what am I in? What's going on here? And
Right.
just being on that other side, I saw what it was like. And I said, if I get through this, or once I finish this program, I want to do something for others to let them know that, they don't have to go through it like this, that they can come through this on the other side brighter and stronger. And so
Right.
that's where it started. It started with me being affected by it, being in the system, and realizing that I wanted to see a change from it. Yeah.
And that must have been very
Mm.
traumatic and scary and confusing and so many various different emotions. So thank you for sharing that with us, because I know sometimes for many, even just speaking about past traumas in
Mm.
itself can open up old wounds. So thank you for sharing that and
Yeah.
using your example and your experience to bring awareness to mental health, because it's true for some family members and friends may not um, identify
Yeah. Exactly.
what we're going through as a mental health crisis or a mental health
Mm-hmm.
issue, or may just shut down certain feelings as such. So it's really important to bring awareness to that, and you've
Definitely.
been able to do that through your own experience.
Yes, definitely. And that's what we do at Essence of Mind is I share my story, and we provide programs for individuals who are on waiting lists to see a therapist. And sometimes it's a long wait list. By the time you see the therapist, you're worse than how you started, and support groups and telephone lines where you can call in and speak to someone without paying, because the cost to see psychologists, they're very hefty fees.
And if you
you
don't
know
have benefits, that's coming straight out of
exactly.
pocket.
Out of pocket. And so I wanted to give that peace of mind and ease a little bit of that for individuals who are going through it. So it started with me being in it and going through it, and just I look at myself as a living testimony to let others know that, hey, if she was there and she could get through that, I certainly can as well, you know.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Um, One of the things that you mentioned that really struck home for me was the individuals who are in need of assistance, but there can be waiting lists
Mm-hmm.
for these individuals. And in
Yeah.
a time such as now with COVID-19, where um, mental health crisis we've seen on a rise,
Mm-hmm.
just based on um, the lack of social interactions, for some, the change in really just how we've had to adapt. Um, have you noticed that there's an even more extended wait period now to see practitioners or psychologists or any sort of therapists?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The wait list has skyrocketed through the roof, and it's more people on the list now. With COVID and this pandemic, a lot of people are looking to get therapists or somebody to talk to, or having that outlet. It's increased a lot, and that's what caused our charity to create programs to let others know that they can turn to us, and we have that individual, those resources that they need. But definitely COVID, this pandemic, it's affected young adults, teenagers, the elderly. A lot of people have even come to me personally and say, it's now that I realize my mental health is being affected. I never thought about it before, but this whole isolating and can't go outside and distancing, it's affected me. And it made me realize just how important that human connection is and what it can do to a person,
Right.
because it was part of my recovery process to interact with people, because I went from isolating in depression, living in the darkness, to being engaged in others. And the pandemic was kind of like that. It pushed you back into isolation, and so we had to encourage others to get outside if you can, even if it's in your backyard. Call a friend or tell them to come out to the porch and you can see them. Get on video like how we're doing now. But you needed those little resources to to pick you up so that you don't really get down so deep into the darkness. But a lot of therapists reached out to us and asked if we could help with some of their lists because they were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
A lot of programs went skyrocket through the roof because of the pandemic.
I
Definitely.
can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to backtrack a little bit because I know we've spoken a little bit about what you're offering within Essence of Mind,
Yes.
and I know you've also touched on being the founder of Essence of Mind and creating it based off of your personal experience. But what was it that really led to the birth of Essence of Mind? How did that
Mm-hmm.
start?
Yeah, Essence of Mind started once I went through it and I came out of it and realized I want to do something for the community. I want others to know that they don't have to go the route I went. I first started by doing an event. It wasn't a charity or an organization. It was just a 1 day event. So I started off by doing fashion show combined with keynote speakers. I collaborated with restaurants in the community and I said, I'll bring the people, you provide the food, I'll do a fashion show, we'll talk about mental health. It'll be a nice little thing. And it started off just being a monthly, yearly, one-off event, and then I was speaking to one of my friends and they were like, you need to go bigger with this thing. This fashion show and this talk, it's not gonna cut it. And I thought about it and I said, yeah, I should go on a broader spectrum because it's just like a 1 day talk and then everybody goes back to their regular lives. We don't really interact about mental illness until I bring up my event again. And
Right.
so I looked into how do I found a charity or maybe a foundation? And so I took the road of doing a charity. It's a lot of work. It's very hard to get a charity. I almost gave up because of the process. It was very, I wasn't encouraged. The process was very hard. And so the more I went through it, the more I was like, no, charity's not going to work, guys. But I stuck through it. And finally, Essence of Mind was birth. We had to propose why we wanted charity. What do we plan on doing with this charity? And basically, it was approved. But it started off with just a 1 day event, and we wanted to make it bigger into a charity where we can offer programs, partnership with other organizations in the community, and really make a more, harder impact on those who are affected by mental illness.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you again overcame challenges. And I think the
Yeah.
theme of today really is overcoming those barriers and overcoming those challenges and patience and resilience.
Yes.
Um, because those are themes that have consistently been coming up throughout. And with Essence of Mind, I know you have quite a few programs that you've offered. A few such as Rise, Free
Mm-hmm.
to Talk Hotline.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those programs that you offer currently and what resources do individuals have access to?
Yeah, definitely. You touched on a few. The Free to Talk is our free therapist line. You can call and speak to any one of our therapists at a time that's convenient for you. There's no health card, there's no fee, and you're just calling and you want that listening ear. They really allow the callers to just talk, and they allow them to vent whatever's going through. We also have a Rise Women and Men support group, which is something that we did mainly before COVID hit. It's kind of hard to do that now because it was an in-person space. We were seated in a circle and men were in a different room, women were in a different room. But that allowed them to see others who were just like them, who were going through the same things, and they shared what worked for them. Maybe it can work for others.
Right.
We are mainly known for our signature event, which is Stimulus, our annual fundraising gala. And everybody looks forward to that. It takes place in October. You're dressed up in your nice dress, your nice tux. You come out to a seated dinner and dance. You hear a keynote speaker. We have an auction and performers. And we basically educate you about the different forms of mental illness based on our keynote speaker. sometimes we have somebody who is in the healthcare or
Yeah.
somebody who has survived a mental illness come in to share their recovery story. But the
Right.
whole theme is having everyone under one roof, being educated and feeling like they can leave that gala, going home to help somebody in their household who may be affected by mental illness. We want to
Right.
have that conversation started. Um, so those are some of the programs that we basically have right now based on the pandemic.
Amazing. Now, is the free to talk hotline, is that 24 hours or does that run just on certain times?
Mm. Yes, right now it operates on certain times. It's operated by a group of volunteer therapists, so we work with their availability, but we are looking to make it 24 because of how, the need is so great, and we've had calls outside of the hours that are on our flyer, and so we want to expand it to 24. But right now it's set on certain days and certain times. But definitely in the next few months, we'll be making it more accessible.
Amazing. And when I post this Instagram live, I'm gonna make sure we post also the
Perfect.
Essence of Mind Instagram, so everyone will be able to have access to the flyers and see those times that they'll have access to
Perfect.
um, free therapy, a free therapist to speak to. Um, Now, I was just thinking when you were talking about the gala, is it safe to assume that sometimes we see a few of Simone's pieces popping up at the gala?
Well, yeah, that's safe to say. We've had it in the past few galas, and I personally look forward to it because I make my own dress, my own gown, and everybody always looks for me to top the previous year. And so I always wear green because green is the color that represents mental health.
Right.
But a few pieces have been shown. We've had 2 fashion shows in our last 9 years of doing the gala. And then we just branched off into just focusing on really just educating the guests. But there's been a few pieces here and there. Yeah.
Right, right. So that's another way you can find some of Simone's pieces right now.
Yeah, it's to come to my gala. With
Support.
COVID right now, we're not sure if we'll have it this October. Everybody's saying, let's
Right.
do virtual, but we're not sure how that will work. So we're still in the talks to see if we can bring stimulus virtual and see how it works. The Black Diamond Ball, we attended that and we saw it worked. So we're
I
like, we could do it.
I
We'll
saw
see.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly, I was looking at that because I saw so many people posting on Instagram that they were
Mhm.
getting ready for the Black Diamond Ball.
Yeah.
And I was like, getting ready to go where?
Where?
And I was like, how's this going to work? I was so confused because I couldn't understand how it was going to work.
Yeah.
And then I saw it and I'm like, oh, I'm like, this works. But that's the thing with COVID, right? Like you have to become so innovative and creative in figuring out how to move to this online world, to this virtual world now.
It's true. It's pushed a lot of people virtual. My parents are so like high tech with technology. It's ridiculous. Before they didn't know certain things, and now they're like, I'm on Zoom. I'm doing this. I'm like, okay. COVID has caused us to transform technology into a whole different level.
Right.
Yeah.
True. It's its own blessing in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In its
Definitely.
own way. So why is it so important for you to advocate for mental health, especially for those within the Black community?
Mm. Yeah, it's important for me because when I was diagnosed, I didn't know how to tell my folks. And my background is Jamaican, and the taboo and the stigma is really high in the Caribbean community. They don't think we get that, or if you do get it, they associate it with some form of spiritual something of another is going on with you. You're not really not well, and when I finally told them, doctor says I have depression, doctor says I have anxiety, they were like, nothing is wrong with you, shake it off, get back to work. It was just, that was it. And I was like, no, 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 this is serious. We really need to talk about this. And it was hard to get through to them. But my mom's a nurse, and she kind of picked up on the signs before I was diagnosed. So when I finally told her, she was like, "Yep, I knew it." I saw it. And my dad just couldn't understand it. He didn't know, what is depression? What is anxiety? What are you referring to? And so just going through that made me realize that others need to be able to be comfortable to talk about this around the dinner table or, at a family gathering. When I came out, my family was like, okay, you don't need to tell uncle, auntie, nobody else needs to know. You'll just stay here. And that was hard because they questioned my mood, my behavior, why I was the way I was. And so it was hard to pinpoint the two if I can't talk and tell you what's going on with me.
Right.
So because of that, I wanted to advocate for others and let them know, no, we need to talk, guys. We can't be ashamed of our stories. We need to open up and let others know where we are, what we're going through, and how we got through it, and that help is available, resources are available. We need to have that conversation because the moment you talk about it, you feel better and you let others know that, they can also do the same by talking about it. If we can talk about diabetes and cancer and all these other diagnoses, we should be able to talk about mental illness, and so that's why I wanted to become an advocate, to share my story and let others know that we have to let our voices be heard and talk.
Yeah, yeah. And it's crazy because in a Jamaican household,
Mm-hmm.
they love to chat. But when it comes to mental health, it's the one thing, like you said, that's just not spoken about.
Not spoken about.
It you can't. It's not something that you're gonna say to a family member because at that point, it's almost as if, and even if you were to even remotely suggest
Yeah.
to a family member, hey, maybe you should look into this.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken. Um, it's not taken in the most positive way.
No.
So, as somebody that is struggling through a mental health crisis, who's trying to understand it and really get through it, there's very few avenues or people that you can really reach out to, speak to within your own immediate
circle. Yeah.
circle.
Yep.
And I think it's very important, especially in the Caribbean culture, to bring that awareness. Because that conversation is really just beginning. It's not a conversation that's been rampant throughout. It's just, I would say, maybe within the last 5 to 10 years that I really started to see that focus in that conversation where people are starting to open up more to the to okay, this is real. This is something knowledge.
Mm-hmm. You're right. People had to see it. My family had to see it. Like after that first attempt with the car going in, I had other attempts, and when they saw it, they're like, "Okay, this is serious, big and serious," as they would say, "Big and serious." This is a really serious thing, and it's like they had to see me go through it to realize what was happening. It started to affect others in my family, my aunt, my nephew, and then people didn't know what to do. They started to come to me and say, okay, what do we do? How do we start a conversation with them? And so that's where it started, for them to lay down their guard and realize, all right, we just have to talk about it. We just have to accept it. This is real. It's in our face. It's here to stay. We just have to face it. So it's like they had to see it. They say seeing is believing. They had to see what you're going through, although they couldn't understand it, but they saw what it was doing to you, and it started to affect them. They started to say, you're my only daughter. I don't want to lose you. What can I do to help? And so that's where it woke them up to realize, okay, this is a serious thing. I really got to try and be there for her, whatever she needs, whatever support. They started to come with me to doctor's appointments, just to understand what was happening. So that's where it starts. It really starts with a deep conversation and having them be there to understand and understand and be there for you.
True. And Natasha's saying, unfortunately, the stigma surrounding mental health is real in the Black Caribbean community.
Real.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100%. They're very quick to talk, but when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to really being able to delve in and address certain areas, no, for sure. Right now,
Yes.
everyone is overwhelmed by COVID-19, the community, and many mental health professionals. Yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
Natasha being a psychotherapist, I know I've spoken to Natasha, sorry, on so many times where she's
Mm-hmm.
just been booked to a whole
See?
other level, to a whole, her schedule has completely booked up
Yeah.
in 2020, and I've seen it firsthand just speaking to her. So Natasha, I also want to commend you
Mm-hmm.
for all the work that you've been doing, especially
Definitely.
not just with therapy, but also representing and speaking on so many
So
various
many.
platforms when it comes to anti-Black racism, um, and so many very important areas. I have a waiting list as well. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
See?
Um, it's very true. Yeah. So one of the areas that your organization provides support to is for families and individuals who've lost loved ones to police violence.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Especially those who were seeking mental health support
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately were not provided with that mental health support.
That's right. That's right. That brings me back to the young man in Brampton who lost his life, DeAndre
Yeah.
Campbell.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they made that 911 call just for assistance, he suffered with a mental illness and he ended up losing his life, you know. And Essence of Mind, we were in contact with the family. We reached out to them to offer any support that they may need. But it was just so unfortunate, such a senseless act that it didn't have to go that way. And so that's why we really think the police system needs to be more educated, more understanding of how to answer those calls for help. It shouldn't really be the police that goes to these 911 calls for mental health. There should really be someone there to assess the situation first before police. Police is there to restrain or hold someone down. That wasn't the case.
Mm.
And so we definitely helped that family get through by connecting them with some therapy resource because it was hard. They really witnessed the loss of, you know, their own family member in front of them. And that could be very traumatizing
Great.
to this day. You know, they're still going through it.
For sure. For sure.
Mm.
What do you think would be, and I know you've touched on this in regards to mental health support and who should be attending, but I know there's a few organizations that are working together with the police services to sort of build or create a
Yes.
mental health response team.
Hmm.
Um, what are your thoughts when it comes to that? What do you feel is um, important when it comes to creating these particular mental health teams? Based on your own experience and what you've seen thus far?
Yeah, I think it's important to have that mental health team where it's an individual who's maybe a motivational speaker or a therapist and a nurse first, those two. And the police can be there, but maybe in the car. Don't come in as yet. Let us go in first. But it's very important to have those two go in, speak to the individual, just to find out exactly what is happening on the inside, what has caused them to get to this stage that they're at. But it's needed now more than ever because in the last few years we've seen every situation that 911 is called to that relates to mental illness, the individual ends up being deceased, they end up dying, and you're wondering, why is that? Why is the situation not being handled correctly? What is happening? And so the new unit that has come out recently, I know one of my friends, Asante Houghton, he's part of that team, that crisis team that goes in to these homes when the calls come in and assess the situation, speak to the individual, and try to get them to that level where they're not, maybe they have a panic, something is going on. But if we can de-escalate the situation before police gets involved, that is very, very important, because there's different episodes of an individual who's going through a mental illness. You know, it ranges high, low. You don't know what's going on. And I don't think police understand that. They kind of see it like, oh my gosh, they're acting wild, they're acting crazy, let me draw my gun. That's not it, you know. And so they need someone who understands that behavior, who understands that language, can help to de-escalate it before, you know, you try to shoot that person or taser them, whatever you may. But definitely we need that team. Yeah, there she is. She says Asante was a guest on our show.
Yeah, we had an empowerment to unlock the justice system. I think it was a few months now, and it was specifically on mental health and community. Asante was one of our guests on that show. And it's 100% in terms of really understanding how to de-escalate the situation. Last week alone, I believe, at least with the two very well-known cases that happened last year, Regis Paquette's, and oh my goodness, I can't remember his name right now. The gentleman in Malton that also lost his life. Seeking mental health support.
I remember that story. Yeah.
And both, unfortunately,
lost their life.
And there's so many more. There's so many more cases that happened throughout the year, that a lot of which we're unaware of. You know, and in those cases, not only is there a cry for help when it comes to that particular victim, but now that cry for help also goes to their family and their loved ones now.
Yes.
Because they're now facing a loss of a loved one. They're now facing, and for some, they may have been the ones to make that call for help.
Exactly. And then they feel responsible. Like, why did I even call the police? Maybe we could have handled it ourselves. There's that guilt. So that team will help a lot. It's just new. It just started. So we'll see how it goes. But I really think it will help to make a world of difference with calls to 911. Definitely a world of difference.
We have someone who said that they just heard Asante on G98.7. Sounds like a helper like you all.
All right, Asante.
So I know we've spoken quite a bit in terms of how Essence of Mind has been able to navigate throughout the new virtual worlds, to be able to provide assistance, to provide support. And you have also taken some time to adjust to support the community as well, to give back to the community as well. And there's a few campaigns, one being Masked Up and one being Isolated But Not Alone. Could you tell us a little bit about those campaigns?
Yes, the Masked Up, we started that when COVID just came. We wanted to see how can we help the community, and how can we also try and keep the charity afloat. So we created masks. As you know, I sew, so I started to sew masks. I was like, okay, let's try and put my sewing skill to a different type of, thing here. So we sewed masks. We donated a few to hospitals, and we also sold to the community, and people were so supportive. They bought the mask in bulks. They bought their own fabric. They were saying, if you can make my own mask for my family. It turned into a whole different thing. It was such a blessing in disguise, but the mask really went fast, and the support was just so overwhelming. But that fit with the pandemic, because you had to wear a mask and everyone needed a mask. And so that really kept the charity, going with the support from the community. And then
at that time, I was just gonna say, at that time, there was a shortage of masks too.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew where to get a mask. Now you see them everywhere.
They're everywhere. So we're like, okay, well, we had a run. That was good. We donated a few to the hospitals in bulks. But the support really came from the community, individuals. They saw that they can get their own customized masks, so they were providing their own fabrics for these masks. And I took on the challenge by making these different masks, but that did really, really good. But for Isolated But Not Alone, it's an Instagram live show such as this, where we wanted to share the stories of essential workers or individuals in the community who were really being affected by COVID-19. We had a lot of people lost their jobs, and some people lost loved ones, and it was hard to deal with. You know, funerals, the amount of individuals who could come was probably a handful, 5, 10. So we spoke to different people just to share their stories and to let others know that this individual is going through this as well, or what can you take from their story to help you navigate through this pandemic. So it airs on Instagram Tuesdays, Fridays, where we speak to maybe a nurse or a doctor or an essential worker. We were speaking to Uber drivers to find out, this is your busiest time, what's it like for you guys, you know, and funeral homes. We spoke to pastors, just anyone who was really affected by the pandemic, and they shared their story, and it's been doing really well. We even had Natasha on our show to share, you know, some tips and suggestions for individuals to let them know how they could, you know, take self-care into their own hands. So that was a virtual event that we decided to launch due to COVID, because we couldn't meet in person. We couldn't have that interaction in person. So we took it virtually online. So it was a really good show. Yeah, you're welcome, Natasha. Thanks for being our guest.
There's one
Yeah.
sector you mentioned that I feel we don't give enough credit to,
Mm-hmm.
and that is funeral services.
Yeah.
And we spend, and I mean, by all means, we give credit when it comes to essential workers, PSWs,
Mm-hmm.
nurses,
Mm-hmm.
doctors, but we don't give credit to funeral services.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It was Luann from Covenant Funeral Home that we had, and she shared what it was like to be with those families and the heartbreaking news she had to give, to say, okay, sorry, only 10 people, sorry, only 5 people, or, you know, having to go to the homes to take the bodies out. And these were individuals who died from COVID, she was explaining to us. So just having to hear those stories, and she said she was busy, you know, bodies were being held on back and different places. And to hear stories like that, it was kind of, it made you realize just how serious COVID is, because you know people are dying, but she was in it. She was seeing it. And we spoke about how she was handling her own mental health. How was that affecting her to know that every day you go to work and this is now your life? You know, before it was what you did, but now the numbers are so high and the deaths are so increasing. So funeral homes definitely, they don't get a lot of credit. And just hearing her stories of how other funerals homes try to have a support group, she called on others would talk, and they, you know, uplift each other. They weren't in it alone. It was good to know that they had a support system to make sure that, you know, they didn't go under. So yeah, kudos for all the funeral directors who are really doing some behind the scene works that we have no idea
Shout
about.
out to anyone who's a funeral director. Surf Your Life, Carrie is asking, are you still doing masks?
Oh yes, masks are still being sold. We still are selling masks. It's just now that everybody has a mask, they're like, yeah, I have my own mask. Before we were ahead of the game. But if you're interested in masks, you can visit our page or our website, and you can place your order from there. We have photos of the different masks that we have, kids as well adults. So definitely masks are still on sale. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So, well, again, we'll post the Essence of Mind Instagram as well as website, so you'll be able to have the link to check those out. We've got Troy who's saying, yeah, it's hard not being able to pay your respects. And Natasha following up saying, not being able to have the closure to celebrate your loved ones.
Yeah, it's
Life has
devastating.
been hard for a few clients. And I can believe that. I
Mm-hmm.
can believe that for sure.
Definitely hard. Yeah.
So you're an entrepreneur, you're a designer, you're a mental health advocate, you're an author. You've done so much, and I can only imagine how busy your schedule is. Um, how do you ensure that you make time for you, for your own mental
I know.
well?
It's hard because I tell others to do it, so I should do it myself. But self-care is how you ultimately take your back. Um, I really manage my self-care, especially if I see that I'm going too hard or I'm getting to that point where I'm draining, I'm getting weak. I make self-care days. I don't just keep going and going and going and going. A lot of people, may take that mental health day. I strongly encourage that, especially if it's with your work. You call in, you need that time to regroup and rebuild yourself. So at the end of every day, or especially after a busy roller coaster, I take that time for myself by meditating. I do a lot of daily affirmations, speaking to myself by looking into the mirror and say, all right, today's going to be a great day. Today's going to be awesome. You got this. Just really trying to recharge myself. But the moment that I see that I'm going downhill, I assess the situation. You know, I A lot of people say that it's not good to do, but I disconnect from negative sources. The social media, TV was a very negative source for me, especially when the COVID came out in the pandemic. I try to distract myself by not going online to see that because it played over in my mind, and I took on that burden like, oh my gosh, so many people are dying. And that was very bad for me. So I encourage you to disengage from any negative sources, people, places, things, especially if it's somebody who doesn't really understand you. They try to bring you down or they put you down in certain ways. Disconnect. I disconnect a lot from a lot of people, but it's for myself. You have to love yourself a lot to do that until they understand why you had to end those toxic relationships, but
Right.
I do that often. Assess the situation, disconnect, and rejuvenate myself by speaking life back into myself and saying, all right, Simone, come on. You got this. You can do it. But meditation, bubble baths, those are some key self-care tips that I strongly do. Listening to music, going for drives by myself, just really trying to find that common ground where I can come back to center, you know?
Right, right. And we need to listen to our bodies.
Oh, do you ever?
That's what we need to listen to our bodies. Pay attention to what's around us, the energy that's around
Mm-hmm.
us, what we're
Mm-hmm.
associating with.
Yourself with.
Really take that time. Trees of Stars and Taurus said taking a recharge day, and Natasha saying mental health days are a must.
I
Uh,
definitely.
Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk, such a great book. And it's true, really taking that time. Sometimes you do have to remove yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, and remove those certain energies that might be contributing
Yes.
that particular mood.
Very important. Yep.
Vinetta is saying it's crazy. Going away every 4 to 5 months was a part of my self care since
Yeah.
COVID-19 that's gone downhill. And now it's meditation and trying to manifest a vacation.
Vacation. I hear
A
you,
hundred
man.
percent. Oh my goodness, 100%.
That's so true. That
Yeah,
is so true.
even that, like being able to go on vacation is something
Mm-hmm.
that I feel now we realize how important that reset
Mm-hmm.
is for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being able to go outside and even just spend that time outside, being able to get away. This
Yes.
was the first year where we've been stuck, so to speak, and a
Energy
lot of people
awareness.
are feeling it. Natasha says, "I want the sea, sand, and sun so bad."
We all do.
We do. Energy awareness for sure. So I want to thank you, Simone, for taking the time to really connect, to speak, and share your story. Because one, it was you being vulnerable to share your story with us, but
Thank
also
you.
taking your story and being able to bring awareness to mental health, and to promote awareness in that area. And your organization, Essence of Mind, what you've been doing, especially adapting currently to the constantly changing events that are going on currently, and really just supporting the community in general. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. We're gonna stay tuned to see what else you have. We're gonna
Thank
stay
you.
tuned for that new line, and if it's stimulus, right?
The
If
gala, yes,
if
in October.
stimulus comes back in October, Simone said she's been working on some evening gowns and some elegant pieces, so I'm
Yeah.
sure you see some popping up there as well. So
Yeah.
we have so much to look forward to. But again, thank you so much
Thank you for
for
having me.
sharing this space with me.
Thank you so much. This is a really good platform that you guys have. Thank you for allowing me to share my story and to encourage others to not give up and to know that they are not alone. Definitely important. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you to all of our viewers. And again, if anyone has individuals that they would like to highlight that we could celebrate on our Instagram Live, feel free to send us a DM. We're always looking at how we can highlight so many of our community members like Simone. And I want to say thank you and good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.